Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. Several protest groups are planning demonstrations for the running of the 146th Kentucky Derby in Churchill Downs in Kentucky. The New York City-based national group Until Freedom took to Facebook on Sunday, posting a flyer for their Derby Day demonstration called No Derby 146. The post reads, "The fact that Kentucky thinks they can run business as usual is disrespectful beyond words. Meet us on Saturday, 4:30 p.m. at South Central Park in Louisville. Tell everyone you know Breonna Taylor will not just be an afterthought. We need the cops that killed her to be charged and arrested immediately. Justice delayed is justice denied. No Derby 146, no justice, no Derby." That is not the only group which protest plans for Sunday. John Fitzgerald Johnson, otherwise known as Grandmaster J, announced on YouTube plans to lead his black militia group, the NFAC, through the city streets on Saturday. Lance, you are a horse racing fan. Of course, the Kentucky Derby has been known for, the glamour. Of course, this year it's definitely going to be different. No fans in the stands, but still it doesn't really take away from the great event that it's known to be. Talk to us now about the protests and, of course, the build-up to this event.
Well, first of all, the Kentucky Derby, as you correctly mentioned, is a massive sporting event. And for the Caribbean this year, it has significantly more interest than usual because there's a Caribbean trainer, Safi Joseph Jr. from Barbados, who is currently the leading trainer at the Gulfstream Park racetrack in Florida. He has a starter there, New York Traffic, a horse that has done very, very well so far this year. Probably 20-1 at the morning line odds, so not really expected to win, but it's a horse that has done well, so there's interest here. Transport ourselves now to Louisville, which is where Breonna Taylor was killed, and the sort of mood and the protests and the demonstrations happening in the city. It is understandable that people sympathetic to the Breonna Taylor cause would want to make a statement with regard to the Kentucky Derby and call for its cancellation. And to be quite honest, given the tone and the mood of things in the USA at the moment, it's hard to deny them that position that they're taking, because Breonna Taylor was killed, I think, 5 months ago. Up to this point, the results of the investigations not made public, and no one knows exactly what is happening. No announcement has come as to what punitive action will come against the policemen who killed her. So it is a huge problem, and I can understand the position that they're taking, demonstrating and protesting the staging of the Kentucky Derby this weekend, which is for the city in Louisville, one of the biggest days of the year. But because of what has happened and because of the anger and the emotion and the disappointment of the black community there, they just aren't into the Kentucky Derby this year, and I can understand their position.
I'm going to ask Brent to give me his comments on what you think about the protests surrounding the Kentucky Derby. And then I want to give you, Lance, a story that I read earlier today about an owner, the only black owner that's supposed to take part in the pressure that he's coming under. Brent?
Yeah, we've, of course, the events of the past couple of months have really opened the eyes for us as a world, as a human race, as it relates to the systematic injustice and, of course, racism, not just in the US of A, but throughout the world. And we've seen sporting icons and athletes alike in different sporting genres showing their support and, of course, their solidarity for the cause. And I think that is it right there. I think the solidarity and showing support is where I think Kentucky Derby has lacked. They have not shown the kind of solidarity that we've seen in other sports, and I think that is the approach that they need to take. And I say that, and as much as I do say that, I want to caution against, of course, solidarity being shown for showing sake, and not with any meaningful representation to the solidarity. And I think that is the difference, and that is the push and the angle from a sporting perspective that many athletes, many fans would like to see. And I think that is where Kentucky Derby has fallen short. And of course, I think that is what they need to do of course, to show the real significant solidarity that people would expect from them.
So, Brent and Lance, earlier today, I read an interview from Greg Habott. He is one of the lone black owners that's going to take part in the Kentucky Derby. And he was saying that, many are pressuring him and telling him that he shouldn't race. He shouldn't let his horse take part in the race in the Kentucky Derby, especially because they feel that, he needs to take a stance. But he was giving how he felt, and he was explaining that, he comes from a horse racing family, so it goes back to 1992, his great-grandfather and all these different things. And he speaks about the change that he now can stand, and take part and, of course, feel a sort of pride. He was saying that, back in 1992, his grandfather couldn't have been on the grandstand celebrating when his horse won. And he was giving, his view about he actually feels like he wants to, from what I got, that he wants to because he wants to see how far he has come, and he wants to remind people that, we have a long way to go. So for me, him boycotting would sort of take away, because it would be the only black owner removing himself from the Kentucky Derby. Like, what type of statement is that? And Lance, when I read it, I thought about the point that George had made about F1. If the only black racer were to take himself away, it would defeat the purpose. I don't know. How do you see that?
Well, it's a tough one to call. The Kentucky Derby is such a prestigious event that as a black man in a white-dominated
sport
history of the Kentucky Derby, if he has an opportunity to race a horse, it's very, very difficult for him to back down at this point. But even the point that because if he takes his horse out, the race will still go on without him.
Correct.
And as George had mentioned with the F1,
and
if Lewis Hamilton wants to make a statement and protest and demonstrate and withdraw, the series will go on without him, and his teammate Valtteri Bottas will probably win in the Mercedes as well. But you know what? Remember that Muhammad Ali in Cassius Clay was then in the late 1960s took a stand, and even though he recognized that his entire career would be negatively impacted by the position he took, he still took the position, and he was relieved of his world heavyweight title, had to fight his way back to get the title back 3 years after that. No telling at this stage, how history would record Muhammad Ali's record if he had not taken that break, because when he had lost for the first time against Joe Frazier back in 1971, it could be considered that the 3 years out of the ring, would have taken a little bit of his sharpness away, even though he had a couple of warm-up fights. But this is a tough one, to be honest. In the racehorse business, you dream and you spend your entire life trying to get a horse, have a horse with the ability to race in something like the Kentucky Derby. And if the black community wants him to pull his horse out to make a statement of protest, I can understand their position, but it still would be up to him, because he knows how much of a one-off opportunity this would be for him. And as you said, if he pulls his horse out, the race would still go on. And Tiz the Law, who is the big favorite, I think will win the race, and he would just be a forgotten person.
Definitely. Well, we continue with the subject of racism. Premier League clubs are set to remove the Black Lives Matter badge from players' shirts when the 2020-2021 season starts next week. In June, when the league resumed, all 20 clubs showed support for the anti-discrimination campaign by wearing the BLM logo on their kit for the remaining games. Clubs are understood to be planning to support diversity in other ways. Players, however, will still be permitted to continue taking the knee if they wish. Brent, this one is for you. How do you feel about the fact that, the Black Lives Matter logo will be removed from the footballers' playing shirts?
I think it's more than a logo. I think it's a lot to do, of course, with what they have done. The mere fact that they would have really used their star power and, of course, their role to really bring to light the situation. And I have to commend the footballers and the Premiership for doing that. And I think what I'm looking at really is how do you move this movement forward? Yes, it's good to have, of course, the logo, wearing the shirt, taking the knee. But we all know that the problem is a lot bigger than just that. And I think that is where we are at right now. When do we now start looking at this issue and saying, listen, each team in the Premiership must have at least one black coach in management, whether in the upper management in terms of team ownership, etc. When is that sort of directive going to be taken? And I think that is where the real push starts. And I think that is where, of course, the athletes, the players have to use their star power to take it to the next level. They've now brought the issue to light. Everyone is now on, they've got the eyes on them, they're watching. Now it's time to put it to the next step. And I think that is what I'm more concerned about, that next step.
Definitely, Brent. I think he articulated that beautifully. He said, you know what, the issues have been brought to the light. What do we do from here? How do we advance and how do we ensure that we effect change? We take a short commercial break and we come back.